There is no music stand. Okay. I forgot to look for a music stand before I came up here. I'm going to borrow, is it okay if I borrow this one? I'll put it back. For many years, when my kids were little, they were convinced that I had eyes in the back of my head. Any other parents have kids who thought that about you? Or did you think that about your own parents? We would be in the car, all three kids in the back seat, my eyes on the road, I promise. And I could say, Sam, stop leaning over on your brother's side of the car. Stay in your own space bubble. How did you know, Mom? Or we could be at home and I would be in the kitchen cooking dinner and the kids were in the other room. Ben, give your sister back her sippy cup. Sophia, do not make that face at your brother. How did you know, Mom? Any parent knows the tricks I use to give my kids the illusion that I had all-seeing eyes that tracked their every move. In any given situation, it was a combination of senses that went into knowing what they were up to. But in the end, my knowledge of their actions all comes back to the fact that I still do, hold their lives. Last week in the children's message, Kim talked about when she used to rock her boys, when she held them as babies. And in rocking them for hours, just as God holds us in God's arms, we are known. My ability to know my children came from those hours of holding them, caring for them, watching them, listening to them, and being with them. Just this week, Sophia went to a doctor's appointment that involved a painful procedure. She was so tough and so brave. But with one look at her, I knew she was on the verge of tears and that she was hurting more than she was letting on. Psalm 139 celebrates a God who knows us like this. A God who is holding our lives not in a general sense of the word, the way the president of a nation, say, might hold all of their citizens, but in an intimate way, as a parent holds a child or a lover holds their beloved. If our psalm last week celebrated a transcendent God who is also intimate, this psalm celebrates a God who is intimate and also transcendent. The beauty of this psalm is that there is this intimacy, but it's not an intimacy based on delusion. It's an intimacy grounded in reality. The psalmist isn't painting an overly idealized image of themselves. You formed me in the depths of the earth, the psalmist says, a reminder that we are finite, made from the very dust beneath our feet. You know my thoughts and the words on my tongue before I ever speak them. This isn't a relationship with secrets. This is a relationship based on honesty and vulnerability. Do you remember the first time a loved one besides your parents saw you at your most vulnerable? It might be your spouse or a very close friend. For me, it was my husband, Eric, who held my hair back while I threw up all night shortly after we moved in together. That's intimacy, right? This was the man that I dressed up for, put on pretty lipstick, smiled my prettiest smile, showed my best self to. And now he was seeing me at my grossest and most vulnerable. I remember thinking, if he can love me through this, he can love me through anything, which has so far proved to be true. We'll see. Maybe I'll find something that will test him more than that, but for now. He has seen me at my sickest, my angriest, my prettiest, my meanest, my snarkiest, my kindest, my happiest, my most generous, most compassionate, and everything in between. And he loves me still. How much more is this true of us and God? There is great freedom in being loved like this. Often when we hear the word freedom, we think of the idea of being able to do whatever we want. Certainly in the public square over the past few years, the debate around freedom and what it means to live in a free society has centered around individual rights to behave, act, and speak in a manner completely of one's own choosing. All harm to others be damned. But that's not the kind of freedom love gives us. The love celebrated in this psalm gives us the freedom to be our most authentic selves, the very best of who we are, the creation God intended for us to be, and at the same time, to know that we are loved even when we fall short, which invites us then to be able to enter back into relationship and begin again. To be known and loved completely means we don't have to hide our rough edges, but can let them be exposed to the light and let love smooth them out. Who among us hasn't been in a relationship where we feel like our very best selves, where we actually want to be better versions of ourselves because that's what the other person sees when they look at us? Our relationship with God is like that. God looks at us and sees us and loves us still, but God also sees the wonder and mystery of our creation and knows who we are created to be. And God's love forms us into that image of God that resides within all of us. There's another beauty in being loved like this, a love that knows us and does not turn away. Because it means we are never alone. In our darkest moments, when the unthinkable has happened, God is there holding our lives. At 3 a.m. in the morning, when we are laying awake, replaying every stupid thing we have ever done or said, God is there holding our lives. When we have moments where we look at our life and see no hope, no way out of our present situation, God is there holding our lives. The psalmist reminds us that these bleak moments in our lives are not dark to God. For God, dark is as light, which means that when we have run out of hope, the God who holds our life has not. But as serious as all of this is, this psalm also has a playfulness to it. I read this and I sort of have this sense of a toddler playing hide and seek with a parent. Look, if I am behind the chair giggling, can you still see me? If I run past you to the closet, will you know where I am? If I duck under the dining room table, or in the case of my son Ben, if I stand on the dining room table, can you still see me? Yes, Ben, I see you standing on the dining room table. Of course, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Our kids think that they might be able to run and hide and trick us, but the truth is that we see them and know. Hide and seek, like so much play, is about exploring the limits of our world in a safe manner. A toddler finds safety in knowing that their parents can search them out. If they were to stub their toe while hiding behind the chair, perhaps before they even let out that howl of pain, their parent would be there to scoop them up in their arms and comfort them. God is holding our lives in moments of despair, but in moments of joy and play also. God is holding our lives when we feel near to God and when we feel far away. When we think we are hiding, God is still there. And when we call out, God draws near to us and reminds us that they have never been far away. Last week, we celebrated the transcendence of God, the God who set the stars in the sky and stirs the waters. Or I was thinking this week, the God who set the comet in the sky that will be seen and not seen again on earth for 50,000 years. 50,000, right? That's our God. God will see that comet, saw it 50,000 years ago, and we'll see it in 50,000 years, even if we don't witness it. But the intimacy of this week does not pretend that the God who draws near to us is any other than that God of transcendence and of creation. You formed us from the depths of the earth, the psalm says, from an unformed substance. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. The Hebrew words in this section evoke the mystery of God who reached into the clay of the earth and from ordinary dirt formed it wonderfully, fearfully, we know, into us. And the psalm is not talking in general terms, all of humanity. I mean, it is, but the psalm is really talking about the intimacy of each one of us being formed that way. That God took the earth and formed you and me. We were formed with this intimacy and wonder, and we are known with every breath we take, every word we consider uttering, and every move we make. My kids have an app called Be Real on their phones. Anybody heard of this? Yes. Indu's nodding yes. Yeah, I learned about it because I'll be with my kids. All three of them have this app, and I'll be with them. And then what the app does is it sends everyone who has the app a text message at a certain, or I don't know, a message in the app. I probably used the wrong words. Sends a message at, say, 3:21 in the afternoon, and everyone with the app is supposed to take a picture of themselves and document what they are doing at that moment in time. So, over Christmas when my boys were home, we would be out doing something, and suddenly all my kids are like, it's Be Real time, So I was like, what's Be Real? And then they're like, are you kidding, Mom? You don't know. And then they finally told me. Anyway, the idea behind Be Real, I think, is that you can't filter and curate your feed as much as you can with other apps because, at 3:21 or 11 a.m. or whatever, you're just supposed to put what you're doing. Well, my adult children refuse to let me be a part of their Be Real feed. In essence, they won't let me be their Be Real friend. I get it. They're developing their own lives and their own stories and their own selves. The mom who had eyes on the back of her head and can see all that they do is no longer invited into all the spaces of their lives. They have clearly outgrown hiding under the dining room table and wondering if I can find them. They are setting new limits and boundaries within the safety of knowing that I will always be there for them. But this psalm reminds us that we never outgrow God. If I were talking to kids the age of my boys, I would say God is always on our Be Real. God, whose ways are higher than our ways, who remains a mystery and yet knows us intimately, is always with us. The God who writes our days before they existed, whose thoughts are more numerous than the grains of the sand, is the God who is always holding our lives. This love is a constant that sees us through our days and calls us to our best selves and catches us when we fall. The common thread between last week and this week is the unfathomable mystery of God. God is beyond our full knowing or understanding, and our relationship with God is a mystery that holds our entire being. But aren't all relationships somewhat of a mystery? Who can quantify a marriage or a friendship? Who can fully understand or explain the love a parent has for a child? Relationships are not so much about the quantification as they are about the living into them, the growing into them, and the gratitude we have for them. So we are going to end today not with a charge to go out and do like we so often end with. We are going to end with a moment of relationship, receiving this gift that God gives us of always holding our lives. And we will trust that in the mystery of this moment, we are being formed still from the clay into a wonderful work. So get comfortable as much as you can in these pews. If you're at home, you're lucky because you can probably really get comfortable. If you're at home, maybe grab a blanket even so that you have that physical sensation maybe of being held. Ground your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath in. And if you are comfortable, close your eyes. Cup your hands into the position of receiving that we have been holding throughout this series. If you want to flutter your eyes open and look at what it looks like if you don't remember. I'm going to offer us a reflection on this and other psalms that celebrate the intimacy of God from a book titled Tales of Hasidim by Martin Buber, an early 20th century Jewish philosopher. Let this reflection be a meditation for your heart on the God who knows us, and receive in this moment the love of God that surrounds you always. Where I wander, you. Where I ponder, you. Only you. You again. Always you. You. When I am gladdened, you. When I am saddened, you. Only you. You again. Always you. You. Sky is you. Earth is you. You above, you below. In every trend, at every end. Only you. You again. Always you. You. Amen.